Hi, and welcome back to 10 Kids, 2 Docs, Parenting Insights from Pediatrician Moms. I'm Dr. Sylvia Bank.
And I'm Dr. Vivian Carlin. Welcome back.
We are going to tackle a hot new parenting trend called gentle parenting on today's episode, and we're going to define it and give you our take on what we think about it.
Yes, this is a tricky one because gentle parenting can have a very broad definition. But I think the heart of it is that we approach negative behaviors in this gentle, calm way that's not further fueling the child's emotion. I think it's an idea if we're showing respect to our child, trust, connection, we're communicating with them about their feelings, we're collaborating on what kind of consequence there should be. And in general, it's a style that relies on the parent showing empathy towards the child and understanding and respect. So with that foundation being laid, let's dive in.
Welcome to the 10 Kids, 2 Docs podcast. Seasoned pediatricians and longtime friends, Sylvia Bank and Vivian Carlin have counseled thousands of parents and are raising 4 and 6 kids, respectively. Join these doctor moms as they incorporate fun and their combined wisdom and experience to share parenting insights for anyone looking for practical and trustworthy guidance. Please note that this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment from your doctor.
Okay, so why don't we start this episode with defining gentle parenting? It was invented by a psychologist in Great Britain named Sarah Ockwell-Smith, and she has actually written several books about parenting. This gentle concept has turned into a series of books from this British author that I think is the foundation of the gentle parenting movement.
Okay.
So one of the best ways, I think, to define gentle parenting is to hear it from Sarah Ockwell-Smith herself. So here's a clip of her discussing the gentle parenting philosophy.
So I think we've got very muddled about discipline in our society, and a lot of people think discipline is the same as punishment. So the only way to make a child to behave better is to punish them, shame them, coerce them, control them, and so forth. But discipline has hundreds of different styles. So I'm not anti-discipline. I just advocate for discipline that works with children, helps them to solve problems, acts as a great role model. Of course we say no. Of course we take things away from them or stop them doing things. Of course there are consequences, but it's about working collaboratively.
Vivian, why don't you give us your thoughts on gentle parenting?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, that's totally fascinating. I enjoy hearing her speak. Where was that from? What was that clip from?
It was from an episode of Good Morning Great Britain, which is their, TV morning show, where they were actually interviewing Sarah Ockwell-Smith and another behavioral psychologist, and they were doing a contrast between those two guests. But that little bit was her talking about her book and her style of parenting.
Okay, cool. Fascinating. I really enjoy hearing the clip of her speaking and describing it for herself.
Yes.
So, okay, at first glance, I would say I fully agree with her. I absolutely think it's important to assess what we're using for discipline and determine whether or not it's effective. And in an ideal world, we are discussing with our child, counseling with our child about their emotions that led to the behavior, and then collaboratively coming up with a solution and an approach and an appropriate consequence. I think the problem that we need to be aware of with that mantra is that the majority of situations are often not that ideal, right? Yeah. So there's an assumption here that the parent has the time and the patience to intervene in this collaborative way, and that the child is also in an emotional place for this to be effective.
Right.
And I'll tell you, Sylvia, that as I researched gentle parenting and other parenting techniques, almost with every new technique I uncover, and there are so many, right? So like, for example, I got down this rabbit trail with good parenting with Dr. Becky, a popular author and podcaster. I read about lighthouse parenting for teens, which is one I came across, strategic parenting, calm parenting. I mentioned tiger parenting in a previous episode. We could talk about free range parenting. The AAP recommends a technique called authoritative parenting. And as a side, I do think we should do a show dedicated to that at some point, but for now, we can place a link in the show notes to give listeners an overview of the authoritative parenting style. But my point is that with all of these techniques, there are things that really resonate with me that I love. And
Mhm.
then there are times where I read or hear somebody speaking on this technique and I think, that's just not going to work all the time, or
Right.
even may not work most of the time for this child, or that might work really well for this child, but this other child, I'm not sure. Or
Right.
sometimes I feel like, ooh, I was really tracking with what they were saying, but then it just kind of fell short because I can envision trying to follow the parenting technique and then being still left with a problem that's unsolved. Like it just didn't quite go far enough. So
Right.
I need a few more tools in my toolbox. And I think I'm probably particularly sensitive to this because, as you know, I have 2 children adopted from foster care. So they're coming from a background of trauma. And I do think trauma is a great magnifier on behavior. And
Mhm.
there's so many times that techniques that seem like they would work for everyone and do work for many, many kids just don't for other kids. And I think that's true with trauma. It's true with neurodivergence. It's sometimes true with ADHD. And as a parent, I realize I need a broad net of parenting techniques to be able to be effective. And I need to be able to take the good from all of these parenting techniques like gentle parenting, but realize that I'm going to be very frustrated if I think that that's going to work 100% for my particular child
Right. I
and for
see that.
me. Right.
Mhm.
So, in order for me to discipline this range of personalities and emotions I have represented in my 6 children, I guess as I've really put some time into this and thinking about this, I think in the end, I'm sort of a hybrid parent. That's the term I came up with, I guess.
Mhm.
Mosaic. I don't know. Like I kind of like look at these parenting techniques and pick and choose the things that I like, and then do different things in different situations.
Yeah.
Um, and there are times I can totally be the gentle parent, and we as a child parent combo can have this beautiful bonding, collaborative discussion about discipline. That's a tool in my toolbox, and it is effective at times, and I love it. But then there are other situations where I absolutely have to give myself the freedom to say to my child, okay, you're breaking the rules. You need to do this. And they're going to say to me, why do I have to do that? And then I have the freedom to say, because I told you so,
Right.
right? There's no discussion. It's because I told you so. And then what comes back? Mom, that's not fair. And then I have the freedom to say, life isn't fair, right?
Right. Right.
Like I'm the mom, I'm the authority here. You need to learn to respect authority. You just need to do what I'm telling you to do, right? So
Yeah.
all that to say that I don't have to hold myself to this standard that I have to be the gentle parent all the time.
Yeah. I feel like your life experience, it tracks very well with what I see in the pediatrician's office, right? Because
Mm,
not one piece of advice universally works for all different families when it comes to discipline. And for you, it's not one piece of advice works for all of your children, right? So
right.
I think that you hit on a good point that not every behavior technique or behavior modification technique is applicable to everybody and every child, right?
Yes, yeah. So my hot take on gentle parenting is I love all of the tenets of gentle parenting. I want them in my toolbox, but on the flip side, I don't want to set myself up for some kind of standard of perfection or always being this way because then I'm certainly setting myself up for failure.
Right.
There's going to be times that just call for something different. I really can't deal with you right now and talk to you about your emotions, and you clearly aren't going to talk to me about that either, so I'm just going to divvy out the appropriate consequence. Enough done, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think this is kind of helps define why behavior modification, discipline, parenting style can be so difficult for parents, right?
Mhm. Right. Again, we all want the formula for do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this, and bam, well adjusted, functioning adult. And unfortunately, with this, there's not an exact formula that's going to work 100%.
Yeah. So my take home message when I researched gentle parenting, I do like the way the gentle parent involves the child and for me more specifically, I think about the child's thoughts. I also like the acknowledgement of emotion. You know,
Yep.
part of the gentle parent to kind of allow the child to understand their emotion, allow them space to have emotion, and for that not to be punished away, to feel the feels, right? What I don't like about gentle parenting is sometimes it can be interpreted as too much coddling.
Mm.
And I think it depends on how you implement gentle parenting. Are you giving your child too much control over their outcome or too much space to come up with excuses? Like,
Mhm, mhm.
there are a time and place to just say, that's enough. Or there's also space for a child to process their emotions internally without you. So to kind of give them a space to cope with and understand their own emotions by themselves.
Oh, I do think that's a good point, Sylvia. That idea that sometimes the child just needs to process the emotions by themselves. Sometimes they're not ready to process them out loud or with you. Sometimes they don't need to process them with you. They just really need to think about it, think it through, gather themselves on their own. But what you've been saying has got me thinking about some other things about gentle parenting that really resonated with me that I want to highlight as well. I do
Mhm.
love parenting that emphasizes that any type of behavior, discipline, correction is really at the root based on establishing and building relationship between the parent and the child. Because
Mhm.
I'm demonstrating to my child, I care so much about you that I can't let you stay in this pattern of behavior. And I think there's also a component of taking that time to acknowledge to my child, there's nothing you can do that will change my love for you.
Yeah.
Right. I think my concern with any method where we're setting such a high standard is that I worry that it's setting parents up for feeling like they're failing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's putting a lot of pressure on parents because, frankly, for myself, I often don't have time or the patience to be gentle in every scenario that comes up. I cannot instantly turn attention to you all of the time, right? And
Mhm.
then I also think, temperament wise, I know for myself, especially when my kids were younger, that's when the buttons get pushed constantly. There are going to be times that I'm going to yell at my children. And
Yeah.
if I hold myself to a standard of I will never react in yelling at my child, I'm definitely going to fail because there are going
Yeah.
to be times that I'm going to react and yell, and then I'm going to have to go back and calmly address the issue.
Yeah. I mean, I like what you said. I think one of the common themes in the way that I parent is to try to work with the child like a team. And this is what,
Mhm.
involving your child in
Yes.
discussion instead of them being the naughty one, it's like the warden and the prisoner. Instead of that type of relationship where you guys are against each other,
Mhm.
it's more a perspective of, you guys are on the same team working
Yes.
towards
Yes.
a similar goal. Right. And I
Yes.
think that mindset helps the child not have a negative image of themselves as being the bad kid or I was bad. The other thing I like that you said that I want to acknowledge that's difficult for parents is that step of staying calm. Like the gentle parent, it'll say,
Mm.
stay calm. And I think those two words are so much easier said than done. But
Right.
at a heightened emotional time where there's misbehavior, I want to acknowledge that in the gentle parent, that step that seems so easy, those two words, that is a very difficult part of implementing gentle parenting. And I think the expectation that parents are just calm is
Mhm.
unrealistic. I don't want people to believe that that's what they need to do to be a good parent, right?
I fully agree. And I feel like one of the things that gets misinterpreted is I'll hear in these parenting methods how, sending a child to their room is very ineffective. And I agree. As a punishment, as a consequence, sending you off by yourself to your room is not effective in training or teaching. But where it's really valuable is there are times with a child where they've done something and I need to say to them calmly, I need you to not be in my presence for a few minutes, right?
Mhm.
Like I'm going to react in anger to you right now, and I don't want to do that. And I in no way think that that is an effective consequence for the behavior. It's more like, okay, you need to give me a minute because I'm going to be really angry if I talk to you right now. I'm going to gather myself, get
Mhm.
separate from me. So it's really more of this is a measure to help me as a parent to be a
Right.
better parent. It is not a measure to train you. So I agree with that in gentle
Mhm.
parenting or in these parenting techniques that bring that up as an example. But I feel like there's a point that's missing that is focused on what's best for the parent, and that might
Yeah.
be a very effective tool to help the parent compose themselves to then have this gentle discussion or whatever we want to term it.
Yeah. So now that we've highlighted the definition and our interpretation of gentle parenting, I think in the second half of this episode, we should run through some real life scenarios and how a gentle parent may tackle.
Okay, love it.
In this second half, let's talk about some theoretical scenarios of how the gentle parent may tackle this behavioral discipline moment, how you and I would deal with this type of situation.
Okay. I love this, Sylvia, because I do not know what you're going to throw at me.
Okay. This has happened almost to all of us, where two of our kids are fighting with each other over a toy. And obviously this can escalate to hitting, screaming, crying, heightened emotion. So you're kind of coming into the situation and your kids are fighting over a toy. What do you do, Vivian?
Okay. I mean, I think this is very dependent on what else is happening with me at the moment. Ideally, first and foremost, I have to de-escalate the situation, right? I'm separating them.
Right.
If let's say I'm in the middle of making dinner, I'm like, guys, okay, you sit on the couch, you sit at the table, get a book, whatever. I need you to separate, and then I'm going to come back around to you, because often I'm not always at your beck and call, right? And then I am going to, try to be patient and hear what happens, knowing that often I'm going to get led down this rabbit hole of circular back and forth logic of who said this, who did this, who whatever. And that even that discussion sometimes is just escalating them against each other.
Right.
And then sometimes it's like very easy and beautiful. And everybody says, okay, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. Let's go back to playing. And other times the decision is, this is not going to work. I need you guys to go do different things. And then I'm the one dictating, you are going to go outside and do this, and you are going to go do this. But it's very multifactorial.
Yeah. For me, I definitely implemented a more drastic parenting strategy.
Oh, tell me.
So I remember this scenario where we had one of those books that had like a little piano on the end. So they would fight over this piano thing, right? Like the piano was no longer attached to the book. I had it first. No, it's my turn. You said it'd be my turn. We've all been in that scenario as a parent, right?
Definitely,
where it's like, oh my gosh, guys, I can't even believe it. I gave them fair warning that this is what we were going to do. When you fight over a toy, it goes in the garbage can.
Okay.
The shock value of, we both really like that. Like, obviously they like it because it is.
They fight over it.
They're fighting over it. And I threw it in the garbage can in front of them. And their faces were like, I can't believe she did that. And you guys need to be able to work this stuff out. Right? Like, this is not a higher level. They want me to be judge and jury there, right? And to side with one of them. Yeah. I don't really care who plays with this piano thing, right? Yeah. This should not involve me. This is a type of scenario where you guys need to work it out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. I will say something I really like about your technique there. Although, oh my gosh, I'm such a softie. I could hide it away for a time. But what I like is, I do think what falls short in some of the parenting stuff that I read is that there is a component where we also want to come in and not set our kids up for failure. So like with that scenario, if there's a toy that is continually being fought over, it's just going to go away. I'm going to enable them to not fail by getting rid of the problem and the temptation. And that doesn't come up a lot in these very soft parenting techniques.
I feel like there's a realm where they need to work it out, right?
Yeah.
It's not about me. And then for them to recognize the point where, ooh, we need to de-escalate or else mom's going to throw this away, right?
Yes, right.
It becomes like they're starting to work together because neither of them want the consequence, which doesn't really involve emotion. I don't even need to say anything. I just need to, there's calm. And that is kind of the technique that I implemented to remain calm. No words need to be said. I mean, I'm disciplining. It's pretty harsh, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So that was my technique for this particular scenario.
Okay. So what was the gentle parenting
Okay,
technique.
I want to play for you the actual gentle parents advice.
Yeah. So what I would do is I would step in and first of all, I'd separate them because nobody wants to leave them to hit each other and hurt each other. I'd take the toy away and say, I can see you're really struggling over this. So I'm going to take this away, separate you, everybody calm down a bit. When they're calm, we'd have a talk like, why were you struggling? Tell me how you were feeling. You tell me how you were feeling. And we'd find a solution together. The best way to make a child calm down is if we ourselves are calm. And I think that's what a lot of parents struggle with because, the world at the moment is so difficult and we're full up to here. And what happens when we scream and yell and we join their tantrums, they look to us as a role model and they copy that.
Okay, so I'm not that far off of what she recommended. Although
you are the gentle parent.
maybe. I mean, although I definitely think there's a place for just take it away. Absolutely. I don't have time for this. Just separate.
So we've kind of gone through the definition of what a gentle parent is, how a gentle parent would deal with certain behavioral scenarios, and how you and I, Vivian, would deal with those scenarios. And why don't we end with some summary points about gentle parenting?
Okay, this is a tricky one, but if I had to summarize, first off, I would say I do think any type of parenting techniques should be built on this foundation of you establishing a strong connection with your child, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're there to help them and support them. That's going to look different in how we do that amongst parents and amongst our specific children. But at the end of the day, we're demonstrating to them, I care enough about you that I'm going to correct you when you have done something wrong, whether that's through talking it out with you, whether it's through removing the temptation for the future, whether it's through us together collaboratively developing a plan for going forward and some type of consequence. However that works best for that parent-child dyad, this is building a connection between us and a mutual respect and understanding. And I am here because I love you and I believe the best about you and I'm here to help you. I do think with any parenting technique, we'll talk about this more in other styles of parenting, it's very important to establish that you are still the parent. It does need to be thoughtful consideration to how we establish our authority as a parent, how we encourage our children to respect authority, not just with us, but when they go out into the world with teachers, etc. And I think that some other parenting methods are better at giving parents tools to establish that. The last thing I would say is almost universally, we're probably all going to yell at our children, and that's definitely not gentle. And I didn't make this point, but I do worry that the people that have the loudest voices in these realms are people like you and I. I mean, we're pediatricians. We chose to spend our entire career working with children. Well, we're a select group, a subset of the population that has that temperament. If you and I yell at our kids once in a while, how do we expect everybody to do that?
My take-home message about gentle parenting is that there's some aspects of what Sarah Ockwell-Smith is saying that can definitely be implemented in a parenting strategy. In our examples, we've given examples of how we have been the gentle parent or used gentle parenting technique. And every parent can consider some of her techniques as part of their toolbox, like you say.
Yes.
But there definitely are times where you don't need to always be the gentle parent. I think that my take-home message is it's not a universal. There, like you mentioned, your hybrid parenting. There are other parental techniques that may be better in certain scenarios. And so I think she's onto something, but I don't think it's a universal mantra for how you parent all situations.
I fully agree. I like the way you said that, Sylvia. And then I think there's a lot of topics off of this that we can do. I think we should do a whole episode on techniques to avoid yelling at your children and what to do when you do yell at your children. I do want to explore authoritative parenting, which is what the AAP lays out. And then I honestly would love to explore these other parenting ones, like free range parenting. I mean, there's all kinds of things we can talk about off of this.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to further discussion on behavior and discipline.
Yep, me too. Sounds good.
Thanks for listening. This is 10 Kids, 2 Docs. I'm Sylvia.
I'm Vivian. And as always, remember, we are on this parenting journey together. Please send us your feedback. You can find it at our website, 10kids2docs.com.
Yes. See you next time.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening to 10 Kids 2 Docs, hosted and created by Sylvia Bank and Vivian Carlin. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and recommend our podcast to other listeners. Visit our website at 10kids2docs.com, where you can find links to social media and leave comments or suggestions. Back next week with more topics in parenting.